Hello my friends on YouTube. I am sorry for the inconsistent uploads, and I'm getting tired of saying this. This year I have been able to attract every single virus. I work in healthcare and I have attracted every single virus that I encountered in my patients. And yeah, well, every time I lose my voice, and I don't want to make silent reviews, so I basically couldn't do anything. So it's getting a bit late, but I still want to say Happy New Year on this 23rd of January. And also, which I would have liked to say around New Year, I get constant silence but constant stream of new subscribers, and I do appreciate every single one of you, and I'm so happy for the people who comment on my videos and interact with me, and all of you who generally just subscribe to me, and I'm happy with that. I appreciate every single one of you. Next, the coffee is ready. I forgot it in a few of my videos, but that is sort of a signature, and I take this as an opportunity just to show off the mug I got from my son on Christmas. Isn't that just so nice? For those of you who have kids, you know what I'm talking about. That no matter how much this cost, it's much better than anything that was much more expensive. So we'll take a sip and then we'll start with the knife. Today we're going to look at a brand that I never reviewed before. I don't have anything else but this, and this is the Giantmouse Ace Iona knife. And Giantmouse is a company run by two Danish designers, or mainly by two Danish designers, and being Danish, I thought I couldn't pass this up, especially since this is their what would you call it, a budget version of a Giantmouse knife. They generally tend to move around in the high-end area, or at least from $200 to $500, and they do some limited editions, like 400 pieces of different knife, and those knives are usually gone in a blink of an eye. So I've never really, I can't afford that kind of money, but they made what they call sort of a budget version of some of their knives, or not a version, but their take on a budget knife. We'll see what they did to cut the price, and we'll see if they managed to succeed in that. So we have a smaller knife, and it's on some studs, and I'll open it for you right away. And as we see, a very simple classic shape, a drop point, and this blade, which we start with, is this knife's claim for fame. This is M390 Steel, which is sort of the luxury thing about this knife. And I guess you could say that if you're gonna make a knife cheap, well, the steel is not the place to save. That's at least what Giantmouse thinks. So they made a knife in cheap materials besides the blade, which is M390. And this one is it's a stonewash. It comes in a more silky finish as well, and not much to say about the blade shape. It's just very ordinary drop point, thumb studs out of the cutting path, as you can see. I'll try to go a bit closer. No jimping on top, and it is a small knife, and the blade length, with which I will write in the video somewhere. And handle, and this is where they cheaped out a bit. This is sort of a plasticky handle. I feel like FRN something. It is not G10, it is a sort of plastic, and plastic all the way through. On one side no liner, just a little bit of metal to keep the pivot and the stop pin on, and a half open construction, half a backspacer, which is integrated in the scale on this side, and sort of cast out of the process that they made the handle with. And on the other side, a bit of a scale. Of course, this lack of metal in the handle makes it a rather light knife as well. And turning it around, we have a wire clip, and I might as well tell you right away, I like wire clips. This has room for a ton of material, which is one of my pet peeves. If you make a pocket clip, please make room for material. But they didn't do anything about this surface, this sort of grippy surface. So it is a tight spring, and combined with the pattern here on the handle, this makes it something of a terror in your pocket or to your pocket. It really is difficult to get out of a decent pair of jeans, and it tears at the pocket quite badly. 10 for the pivot screws, sorry, Torx 8 for the pivot screws. The clip can be moved both sides, so it is ambidextrous. And we have the Giantmouse Ace logo. Ace is going to be Giantmouse's sort of budget brand, like Vanguard for Kaiser, and Civivi for Wii, I suppose. Fit and finish. This handle could have been milled buffed off a little more. I've already been there. I usually take my knives apart just to see what's inside, and this handle could definitely have used some milling on the inside. It has some very sharp corners, like, you know, from when they cast this plastic. They could have buffed it off a bit, but I guess maybe that's the price you pay for better steel and the price they take. Looking at the centering, it is near perfect, and no up and down, side to side blade play, nothing like that. And that's about what I'm gonna say about the finish. I simply did, if I can find a knife, I simply did a little bit of scraping off at the corners here, at the corners of the scales. That was enough to remove that edge, but otherwise it just grabbed a little bit in your palm, and I guess if you're a hard worker you wouldn't notice it for the calluses in your hands, but I noticed it since I have, I guess, used my hands a little less for hard work. So that was one of the things I did. Action wise, this knife comes very, very stiff out of the box, and it is still, although the action, some studs can look good on camera, it is still a bit stiff, but it has smoothed out a lot. I've used it for about 2 weeks, but that was what it took, and also some lubrication with the lubricants of my choice. I have some things I like, and that's nano oil, and sometimes I mix it with some nano grease, and that works quite well on washer knives. But it still has a bit of a stiff action, and yeah, it was extremely stiff when I took it out of the box. So beware, but also it breaks in quite nicely after a while, and I think the action is decent, and the closing action, not like anything you can drop shot or anything, but it is decent action, and well, at least it doesn't shut down on your fingers, that's for sure. We are looking at the liner lock, and that's one of my peeves with this one. I'll just get it to focus. There's absolutely no recess or anything to make it easier to get to the lock. You just have to jam in your finger and use the little piece of your flesh to push it aside, and it tears away a little bit of your thumb. Again, not a big problem for a hard worker, but for the rest of us, well, it is not a fidget knife, not at first anyway, because it tears a bit away at your thumb. Ergonomically, we have this curved shape and some very rounded off recesses in the handle, which makes it sit quite nice in your hand, but they are still not eating away at your hand, and it is a decent ergonomics. However, this clips is very prominent in your palm. You feel it very much, and I feel sorry to fault it a little bit at this, because at the same time I always complain about not enough room. When if you put enough room, I complain about it being beefy in your hand, but yeah, you definitely feel this clip here, and I think if you use it really much for a longer period, it will be a hotspot. Other than that, no hotspots after I just smoothen the edges a little bit on the inside here, and it fits very nicely in your hand. And reverse grip, nice too. So what are my feelings overall? Well, I had a few nitpicks. The steel, the M390 Steel, is of course this knife's claim for fame, and it has an amazing edge retention. I've used it for about 2 weeks, and you can hardly see that I used the blade, and the blade is still very sharp. So no, yeah, it definitely does what M390 is supposed to do. It is very difficult to wear out, and overall, well, it's not a knife that impresses you out of the box, that's for sure, but it sort of grows on you a little bit. Still, for $99, yeah, it is the steel that is gonna carry this through, because other than that, yeah, you can get better options even for $50, but definitely M390 at $99, and from a reputable knife designer and producer is a nice deal. But as I said, it grows on you. Did I forget to mention it's on washers, and that of course adds to that little less smooth action than the bearing knives, but that's inherent in a washer knife. Some people will argue that it's easier to maintain and keep a washer knife clean, and it will function better in the long run, even in dirty environments. I haven't used any of my knives in that dirty environment, so I can't really be sure. Of course, beware of that. I am one reviewer, and you are always, and you should go and look at other reviews before you make your decision. So a recommendation with a bit of prejudice, because it can be a bit disappointing out of the box, and I did some work to make it feel as good as I would expect from a $99 knife. But that M390 Steel, it would of course be a good sales point for a lot of people. So, as always, you're the judge. And with this, have a nice day, evening, whatever it is in your country. Bye bye.